Hello, ChipGT here from Casual Gamer, and I'm very excited to share with you a new video series that will chronicle how I went about making this amazing virtual pinball cabinet. This series is not necessarily going to tell you how you should build your own, but think of it more as a guide on what to consider if you want to build your own, buy a prefab, and some of the lessons I learned along the way. There'll be plenty of links down in the description, and this will help save you countless hours of research. And we will primarily focus on how I got started, the online communities, the various software that I use, what to know when building your own versus buying a prefab, the controllers, buttons and plungers, lighting, solenoids, surround sound feedback, and much, much more. In this video today, I'm going to tell you how I was plunged into the world of pinball, why I decided to go with a virtual cabinet versus buying a real cabinet, all the communities that are at your disposal, basis of hardware and software, and how to get running in a basic setup I call Phase 1. Without any further delay, let's go ahead and coin in and push that start button.
I thought you said you were good at this. I said I like playing it. I never said I was good.
9 years ago, pinball was introduced to me by one of my work colleagues named Mark. He invited me over to his house as a kind of get to know the new guy work party, and when I arrived, I knew that he was a pinball fanatic that owned many pinball machines, but I never knew someone could reasonably build a home arcade comprised of 14 pinball machines, complete with a full bar and beer on tap. As he offered me a beer, I mentioned that from my limited understanding and the few games that I had played in my youth, that pinball to me was just a game trying to keep the ball in play and get as many points as you can. Mark said, "In a way, you're right," and began to explain that no two machines are alike, with each containing its own set of complicated rules, modes, and functions that enable you to get more points, and that there are tricks to help keep the ball in play as long as possible. He then told me about pinball leagues and clubs, with some having some fierce competition, and even you could have two members in the club that have the same exact machine, but they play different over time, like a pool table with wear and tear. One machine at a time, he taught me the various tricks and rules, and how to keep a ball in play by using nudging. I even got to put my initials on a few of his machines that to this day serve as a reminder that I beat him, and I was hooked. Over the next year, I would continue to meet up with Mark, and I even attended a few pinball conventions. I got to play games at various bars that I went to, and at work I would tease Mark. I would always take one off his hands and offer to store one, as he would often complain that his basement was running out of space. They always seemed to be like something out of reach and unaffordable. Man, was I ever wrong. Eventually, the teasing became more like offers, and I began talking with Mark about how I could go about buying one new or used. He taught me about the online communities at pinside.com and how to determine a fair price for a machine based off of the rarity of the machine, popularity, age, and condition. Machine prices can range from a few $100s up to $12,000, and some now even reach $16,000. Mark would often tease me, saying he downloaded a game to his phone called Pinball Arcade, and that's always an available option. However, in the pinball community, these video games are seen as the red-headed stepchild to pinball, and no virtual table could ever beat the real deal. Though he was just messing with me, I ended up downloading the software for free, and the tables were about $5 each for replicas of original tables. I then began to wonder, if a game on my phone is this good and can play and properly emulate pinball tables, what could a PC do? I began looking online for virtual pinball software and found many options, including Future Pinball, Pinball FX 2 and 3, Visual Pinball, PinMain, and a front end called Pinball X that combined it all together. The software with the highest requirements was Pinball FX 3. It recommended Windows 10 with an Intel i5 4590 or an AMD equivalent, with 8 GB of RAM and an NVIDIA GTX 970. In reality, the GPU is the main component to worry about. This means that most laptops could even run this software. The only limiting feature was how many video outputs your PC has. Honestly, any graphics card today with 3 or more ports will work for 1080p resolution. However, if you are looking to future-proof yourself with the new Pinball FX 2022 software, you will need a minimum of Windows 10 on an Intel Core i5 25K at 3.3 GHz processing with 16 gigs of RAM and an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 960 or higher with a dedicated 2 GB of RAM. A gaming rig circa 2019 should work at the recommended settings. If you want a 4K display, you'll need something a little more recent, like the NVIDIA 2000 series and up, and of course the monitor. In Future Pinball, there's an option for an 8K ball that has more to do with polygon count and the physics for where the ball strikes the various elements of the table, more than the realistic gameplay. Honestly, I can't tell the difference, and it's an option, it's not required. I eventually found a community of virtual pinball players on vpforums.com and vpuniverse.com. There were also a ton of people who were all looking for reasonably affordable pinball solutions that had been bitten by the pinball bug. I also quickly learned that people were building their own cabinets containing hundreds of pinball machines. I ended up getting an old 40-inch television from a friend who was getting rid of it due to a power issue. I ordered a capacitor replacement kit on Amazon for the model and fixed the issue. Another friend gave me a 1080p 27-inch monitor he no longer needed that I use as my back glass. I plugged both of these displays in and they worked. I then removed the TV display stand and placed the TV on some books that were propped up on a folding table. I plugged in an Xbox controller to my PC and watched Terry Red's Guide to Pinball Essentials video and followed along on the nailbuster.com to download the Baller installer software, Steam, FX2, and FX3. I finally had my first configuration, or phase 1, of a pinball cabinet. Shortly after loading and playing a few tables that Mark owned in real life on my virtual machine, I realized I wanted another monitor to separate the DMD and the back glass for added appeal and gameplay aesthetics. With that wraps up this video. In the next video, I'll cover phase 2 and 3 that covers things to know when you're building a cabinet versus buying one. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give me a like and subscribe so that you know when the next video comes out. Also, in the description there's an invite to my Discord channel. I get online and play games every Saturday from 8 p.m. to midnight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks for watching.